Hi, I'm going to read a book. The book we're reading is Not My Dog. The last chapter we read was called Ellie and Preston. This chapter is No Zoo Today. On Thursday night, Ellie awoke with a stomach ache. She threw up 3 times. Each time, her mother wiped her face with a cool wash rag and gave her a cup of water to rinse her mouth out. "Don't swallow it," Mrs. Martin said. "We want to give your tummy a rest." And then each time she put Ellie back to bed, pulling the covers up and under her chin. The last time Ellie threw up, it was almost morning. The sky was streaky with light and the birds were beginning to chirp. "I'm sorry, Ellie," said Mrs. Martin when she put her back to bed, "but you're not going to be able to go on your class trip to the zoo today." "Not go to the zoo?" squeaked Ellie. "I'm afraid not," said her mother. "I want you to stay home and get all well." "But I am all well," said Ellie. "I feel fine." She didn't, of course. Her stomach still felt wobbly, and sometimes she was hot and cold at the same time. "Besides, I really want to go to the zoo." "I know you do, Ellie. You'll go next time," said Mrs. Martin. "But Amy and I were going to sit together on the bus. We were going to take peanut butter and banana sandwiches for our lunch and grape juice to drink." At the thought of peanut butter and bananas and grape juice, Ellie's stomach did a sort of flip-flop. She swallowed hard and slid under her covers. After a while, Ellie heard the alarm clock ring in her parents' room. She heard the shower running in the bathroom and her father singing his morning song. She heard her mother go downstairs and bang and clatter of the dishes as the rest of the family ate breakfast. She heard Preston bark for his kibble. Later in the morning, after Ellie had had a little nap, her mother came into her room. "Good morning," Mrs. Martin said. "Are you feeling any better?" "Yes," said Ellie, sitting up in the bed and pushing her hair out of her eyes. "Can I get up now? Can I get up and get dressed? If I hurry, maybe I can get to school before my class leaves for the zoo." "No zoo today," her mother said. "Put on your slippers and come downstairs. You can lie on the couch in the family room and watch a little TV. I'll fix you a glass of ginger ale." Ellie put on her slippers and followed her mother downstairs. She sat on the couch, and her mother put a blanket over her and gave her a glass of ginger ale. She turned on the TV to a children's show about a tall and skinny schoolteacher who could make magical things happen just by rubbing the top of her head. "Now," said Mrs. Martin, "I'm going upstairs to do some work. You call me if you need anything." After her mother left, she took a sip of her ginger ale and felt the bubbles tickle her nose. She thought about the class trip to the zoo and about Amy sitting by herself on the bus. She thought about all the animals she was not going to see, and about the lily pads she was not going to jump on, and about the pavilion and the children's zoo she was not going to eat lunch in. Ellie tried to concentrate on the tall and skinny schoolteacher on the TV, and watched as she rubbed her head and made all the toys in the kindergarten room dance in circles. "This is a baby show," said Ellie out loud. "A stupid baby show." With that, she padded across the room to get the remote control. Back on the couch, Ellie started to change the channels. Click, 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 and click, 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 click. Shows spun by before her eyes. The news, a cooking show, more news, a woman singing, a hymn, a judge tapping his gavel, and the tall and skinny schoolteacher again. Then, a huge hairy monster flitted across the screen, followed by a gardening show. Ellie leaned forward and stopped changing channels. Then she carefully clicked another button until she found the monster again. "Cool," she said, leaning back and putting the blanket up under her chin. The monster was gigantic, with fiery eyes and arms shaped sort of like flippers. He was running down a crowded street, chasing a woman with yellow hair, flattening cars and toppling city buses as he went. Every once in a while, he let out a deep, snarling roar. The background music was loud and throbbing. All of a sudden, the rest of the house seemed very quiet, and Ellie felt lonely and a little bit scared. She picked up her glass and took another swallow of ginger ale, but that didn't help. She put her fingers partway in her ears and halfway closed her eyes, but that didn't help. She thought about calling her mother, but knew that she would make Ellie turn off the TV, and Ellie wanted to see what happened to the woman with yellow hair. "Preston," she said in a low, shaky voice. Are you in here, Preston?" From across the room, Ellie heard the clink of Preston's collar. Preston got down from the window seat and came over to the couch. He poked Ellie with his nose, and after a while, he jumped up beside her. He stood there for a minute. Then he turned around and around until he flopped down and curled into a ball right next to Ellie. Ellie thought it felt warm and safe to have him there. The house didn't seem as quiet anymore, or the music as loud, or the monster nearly as large. She reached down and rubbed one of Preston's sticking up ears. "But you're still not my dog," she said to Preston. She and Preston watched the end of the show before drifting off to sleep. That night, after the rest of the family had supper and Ellie had a bowl of chicken noodle soup and some more ginger ale, the phone rang. Mr. Martin answered it. "It's for you, Ellie," he called. "Great Aunt Margaret wants to talk to you." "To me," said Ellie, going to take the phone. Then she said, "Hello?" "Well, now, Ellie," Great Aunt Margaret said in a kind of booming voice, "I just had to call and thank you for that wonderful portrait of Preston. I have it right here, hooked onto my refrigerator with my flower magnets." "Oh, that's good," said Ellie. "Yes," said Great Aunt Margaret, "and I could tell from your picture that you've discovered what a very smart dog Preston is. Something about the eyes and the tilt of his head. He really is a smart dog, you know. Why, my goodness, he always knew to tell me it was supper time before I even had a chance to look at the clock. And whenever I misplaced anything, he was sure to find it. He found my glasses, my knitting, and once even my telephone when I left it under a stack of newspapers." She laughed, a booming laugh, and went on. "I often said that if I ever managed to lose myself, Preston would find me." Ellie giggled at the thought of Great Aunt Margaret lost under a stack of papers. She swallowed hard to stop herself from laughing and said, "I'm glad that you liked the picture, I mean." "Indeed I did," said Great Aunt Margaret, "and I'm sending one back for you to show to Preston, so he won't forget me." The next chapter we're going to read is The Long Way Home. On Monday, after school, Ellie brought Amy home with her. "I guess it's time for you to see the dog we got from Great Aunt Margaret," she said when Amy called over the weekend to tell her about the class trip to zoo. "What's he look like? Your dog, I mean," said Amy as the two girls crossed the street with the crossing guard and headed for Ellie's house. "Well, he's brown and sort of square, with sticking up ears and a long skinny tail. And he's not exactly my dog," said Ellie. "He just lives here, is all." When the girls went into the house, Preston sniffed Amy all around and tugged at her shoelaces. Amy let him lick her fingers, and after he was finished, she scratched him under his chin. "I think he's cute," she said, standing back and looking at Preston. "I think he's really cute." "Maybe a little, I guess," said Ellie. "He looks like he should be on television or in the movies," said Amy. "A little bit like Benji and Lassie, kind of rolled into one." "Do you really think so?" asked Ellie, squinting at Preston as though she had never seen him before. "Benji and Lassie?" "And Pongo, too, but without the spots and painted brown. And with ears that stick up," said Amy. "Yeah, that too," said Ellie, slipping her fingers under Preston's collar and leading the way into the kitchen, where Mother had milk and cookies waiting. "Here's a letter that came for you today," said Mrs. Martin as she handed a fat white envelope to Ellie. "Who's it from?" asked Ellie. She unstuck the flap and pulled out a piece of paper, unfolding it and spreading it carefully on the table. It's Great Aunt Margaret, she said, running her fingers over a crayon drawing of a woman in a blue flowered dress, her gray hair pulled into a top knot with a knitting needle stuck through it. In red block letters across the top were the words, "For Preston and Ellie, so you won't forget me." "Look, Preston, it's Great Aunt Margaret," said Ellie, holding the picture out for him to see. "Do you think he knows who it is?" asked Amy. "I'm not sure," said Ellie, "but he likes it." And the three of them watched as the dog licked the paper and gently nibbled one of the corners. "Now, Ellie," said Mrs. Martin, when the girls had eaten their snack and Ellie had arranged the school papers and party invitations and dentist appointment cards on the refrigerator door to make room for Great Aunt Margaret's picture, "I'd like the two of you to take Preston for a nice long walk." "But, Mom," said Ellie, "I just brought Amy home to see the dog, and now she's seen him, and we want to go over to her house because Billy is going there too. We need to practice our three-legged race for the school field day next week." "Please, Mrs. Martin, my mom said to tell you that if you walk us over to my house, she'll bring Ellie home, and when we're done," said Amy. "That's fine," said Ellie's mother. "I'll take Preston along for the walk." "Can he stay? Can Preston stay?" said Amy. "He can help us practice for the race. My mom likes dogs, so she won't mind a bit." Amy's mother was glad to meet Preston. She found an old tennis ball and threw it for him while Ellie and Amy and Billy took turns practicing three-legged races up and down the yard. Sometimes Preston chased the ball, and sometimes he chased the children, barking and nipping at their tied-together legs. But most of the time he ran along beside Ellie, no matter where she went. After they finished playing, Amy and Billy and Ellie sat on the back steps to rest. Preston sat in front of them, but closer to Ellie than to anybody else. Without thinking, Ellie reached out to him, ruffling his fur one way and smoothing it flat the other, over and over until Preston half closed his eyes and started to nod. "That dog's pretty cool," said Billy. "Better than ours, who mostly just sleeps and snorts. And tons better than our cats, who don't do anything," said Amy. When it was time to leave, Billy's mother picked him up to go to the dentist. Amy's mother was talking on the telephone, and Ellie didn't want to bother her. "I'm going to go," she said to Amy, hooking Preston's leash onto his collar. "You can wait, she won't be long," said Amy. "Except that if she's talking to my grandmother, she might be long." "That's all right," said Ellie, heading for the gate. "I'll see you tomorrow." "Okay, Preston," she said when they were standing on the sidewalk in front of Amy's house. "Mom said you needed exercise, so now we'll take you the long way home." Instead of turning right, they turned left. They went to the end of the block and to the end of the block after that. They turned left again. When they came to a circle, they went around it 1.5 times before taking a road that shot off to the side. After a while, Preston stopped to sniff at a forsythia bush. Ellie looked around. She blinked her eyes and looked again. Nothing was the way it should have been. There were houses lined along the street, but Ellie had never seen any of them before. There were cars in the driveways, but she had never seen any of them before. And down at the corner, there was a woman working in her yard, but Ellie had never seen her before either. She looked up and down the street and around the corner, but she didn't know which way to go. The woman who had been working in her yard wasn't there anymore, and Ellie didn't have the nerve to knock on her door and ask for directions. Her hands were suddenly sweaty. Her knees shook, and she sat down on the curb. When she tried to speak, there was a lump in her throat. "Oh, Preston," Ellie said, "I thought I knew the way, but now we're lost, and I don't know what to do next." Preston sat down next to Ellie. He twitched his sticking up ears and wagged his skinny tail. Thump-a-da, 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 thump. He looked one way and then the other. He stood up and stepped back as far as the leash would reach. He barked. Preston barked again and gave a sudden jerk. The leash slipped out of Ellie's hand, and she had to jump up and run to catch it. When she was holding on tight, Preston started to run. barking from time to time. Ellie was pretty sure he was telling her to come along, to hurry up. Preston raced down the road to the circle, where he went around 1.5 times, still pulling Ellie behind him. He turned right and right again. He flew past parked cars and trees and a boy playing ball past Amy's house and all the way to the corner. Preston turned right one last time, pulling Ellie halfway down the block until he stopped in front of the Martins' house. When Ellie went into the house, she was half laughing and half crying. She told her mother what had happened, the words tumbling out of her mouth all in a rush. Then she sighed and said, Great Aunt Margaret said that she was sure that if she ever got lost, Preston would find her. And that's what he did for me. I was lost, and Preston saved me. He brought me home. That night, after everybody's favorite supper of spaghetti and meatballs, with a special treat for Preston, Ellie's grandfather called from Virginia. What's new? Said Granddaddy, when it was Ellie's turn to talk. Well, said Ellie, settling into the chair by the telephone, today, when I was at my friend Amy's house after school, it was time for me to come home. Her mother was busy on the telephone. That's when I decided to come home by myself. Only when I tried to find the long way, I got lost instead. But Preston saved me. Preston? Do I know Preston? Granddaddy asked. He's the dog Great Aunt Margaret gave us because she was moving and couldn't take him with her, said Ellie. Preston sounds very smart and brave to me, Granddaddy said, and you're very lucky to have him for your dog. He is smart, I guess, and brave too, said Ellie, but I'm still not exactly sure he's my dog. If you want to finish reading this book, click the next video. Goodbye.